So the track I'm going to do with you today is sampling a Marvin Gaye track called Sad Tomorrows. So I'm just going to start off by playing you the song.
Flying high in the friendly sky without leaving the ground. The rest of the folks are tired and weary and have laid their bodies down. I go to the place where danger waits and it's bound to forsake me. So stupid-minded.
So in order to save time, let's just imagine we heard the whole thing of that. So once you've found your sample, what I like to do, there's lots of different ways of doing this, but the way that seems easiest for me is to open a new MIDI channel. So I just did Shift Apple T, or you could also do Create, Insert MIDI track. And then I load up a drum rack. And so at home, I've got a Akai MPK49, which is a keyboard with 12 pads on it. But today I'm using an M Audio trigger finger. For anyone that doesn't know, they look like this. So the 16 pads on the trigger finger correspond to the 16 pads in drum rack. So dragging this track straight from this audio channel here to C1, which is, if I arm it, it should be right there. I wish I could show you what I was doing. Probably be a lot easier to understand, but anyway, so once you're in drum rack, by clicking on the little pad here, you can see what you're actually dealing with. So here's our sample set to minus 12 decibels in volume. So I'm going to put that to 0. And then I'm going to go find my first sample, which is somewhere around here. So I want to grab that could right there. I think that's a nice chord. So once you've got that loaded up, corresponding to one of the pads, you can start pulling together some more stuff. So I'm just going to do a couple more samples and then go to a track that I've prepared earlier, like a cooking show. Right, so I'm just going to use these 4 samples now. And I want to do something a little bit like this. So once you've got your sample set, you want to record a groove. So there's a couple of ways to do this. You can either use arrangement mode. I'm going to use loop mode. So I'm going to start this track and put down just 4 bars or something. Make sure you turn off the first track first. That always helps. So once you've got your loop, go in and just trim the edges back so it's a perfect 4-bar pattern. And then often you'll find that you'll need to quantize it. So if I played you this now, my timing's pretty good, but not quite perfect. So to quantize, select all the little clips, go to quantize settings, and then I want to choose eighth notes. So I'm going to click that there, say OK, and so now it should sound more in time. Good. Okay, so once you've got your loop and you're happy with that, I'm going to add some drums next. So this is a kit that I've also prepared. Can I get it out? This is a kit I prepared earlier. Just play it quickly. So I'm just going to put down a quick groove to that now. Oh, it didn't do it. And then much in the same way, trim your clip back and see what that sounds like. I'm not going to quantize this because often when you quantize drums, you lose like much of the essence of what you played. So I'm just going to leave that as is, even though it's quite scrappy. And now I'm going to show you something you can do to the sample to make it just more interesting, I guess. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a compressor on it. Everyone loves a bit of sidechain. So I just dragged a compressor out of the devices onto the channel where the sample is. And if it would work, there we are. And then click this little arrow here, sidechain, audio from. So this is basically the signal that's getting sent to the sample, which will dip the volume. So I want to choose my kit, which is drum rack 5, and then get my kick drum, which is this top one here. So when I play that, you can see on the threshold of the compressor, it's receiving the information from the kick. So I'm going to pull this down and show you what happens. So that's how sidechain compression works, and you can hear what that does to the sample, and it kind of just gives the groove you've got a bit more flow, I guess. Another thing that I'm going to do with this sample is I'm going to duplicate it, so I get 2 tracks with the same thing on it. So if I played this now, it'd give you some weird phase issues. But what I'm going to do, and I don't think many people know that this works this way, is I'm going to go and get an auto filter, put that on the sample, and then pull it right down. So I've just soloed the track, so it sounds like this. And you can actually sidechain auto filters, which does some really cool stuff. So I'm going to click the arrow again, get a sidechain in there, and I'm going to point it back to the drum kit, which is now 6, and get it to one of the claps. So what was So that'll do. And then you use an envelope, which basically affects the movement in the filter when the sidechain is initiated. So if I increase the envelope, when the snares hit, it'll pull the treble back into the sample, like this. Just another way to get some more textures in there. And then putting that back with the first bit of sampling I did. And then the beat. So there's just lots of things that you can do to make it sound a bit more interesting and do a bit of experimentation to make the sound your own. Because often, like, something I've found with sampling is I've used tracks and people have straight away been like, oh, that's that Durondo joint, or like, I know where you got that from, so-and-so also used it. So like, if you want to get really weird but also keep the same vibe, this is a fun thing to play around with.